I just want to say that was hot, right? That was challenging, and it was also very connecting. To be in nature, to be outside, what a gift, right? So how many times do you get to connect with your bodies on a daily basis like that? 3, 4, 0, 10? Does anyone do this kind of practice every single day? Raise your hand.
I meditate, but it's not yoga.
Amazing. Okay, so there's maybe 3 of us. Okay. That's great. This is a good starting point. You see, disconnection is what women feel on a daily basis. Yes, we lead at home, we lead at work. We have to be the partner, the mom. We have to be the teammate. We have to be the boss. That bird almost hit me. When do we have a moment for ourselves? And I talk a lot about disconnection. When you are disconnected, it is really impossible to find grounding in yourself, to find your truth. You see, we perform life every single day, and we are so good at it, right? We perform all of the roles and all of the hats that we need to wear seamlessly. And this is what we master as women, right? We perform so that we get the accolades, so that we get the promotion, so that we get what is rightfully ours, because we have to fight just that much harder. We have to fight at home. We hold the emotional energy of our spaces. Who feels the pressure of the emotional energy with those around you? I do all the time, and it's exhausting. That connection that we feel out there with movement, with yoga, with dance, with meditation, with stretching, we don't take the time to connect with ourselves as often as we should. You see, I am a dancer. If we were on a stage inside at some event, we would be dancing together instead of doing yoga. There is some form of movement that needs to happen to activate and connect you back to your body, because when you are in your body, you are that much stronger. You are more mindful. You are more yourself. And that is where our truth comes from. And truth is the only tool that's going to get you out of performing. So today we're going to talk about that. I'm going to take you on a little journey of 6 years ago. It was 2020. I want you guys to close your eyes. Forget where you are. Forget who's around you. Think of where you were in 2020. We all know what happened then. It was very isolating. We were very alone. COVID was hitting. We didn't know what the fuck was about to happen. If you had children like me, I had a 1, 3, and a 5-year-old at home. Talk about pressure. I didn't even realize that I had disappeared from my life at that moment. Where were you in your life? Think back to that year, because for me, it was foggy. Bring yourself back to your body in that year. What were some of the emotions that you were feeling? What were some of the things that you were not feeling? What did you choose to dissociate from? You can open your eyes. You see, for me, it was just another night. I was sitting on the couch with my husband. We had put our kids to bed, and I didn't think anything of it. When all of a sudden these words fell out of my mouth, I don't need to exist. I had done a really good job for decades disappearing from my life. I was so dissociated and so depressed that burnout was a joke. I didn't even know how far gone I had been. I had created the business of my dreams, working with clients who I loved for 6 years, had the marriage that I thought was the dreamiest marriage of all, had the 3 children that I wanted. I was deep into motherhood, and I wanted out. Why? But the shame that I felt because I wanted out and I was flirting with suicide was actually greater than the thought of suicide. Isn't that funny? My own judgment and shame of even feeling that way was more powerful to me, keeping me stuck, versus the actual thought of being suicidal. When we have those moments where we're so disconnected from ourselves and our lives that we've created because we're performing, we're the good girl, we're the good boy, right? We're the high achievers, the people pleasers. Who was the peacemaker in their house growing up? I was. I had to stay emotionally regulated for everybody around me, and I was the baby. I held the emotions of my older sister, my mom, and my dad. And I thought that that was great. I'm being the good girl because I'm the peacemaker. That must be my job. Well, I carried that role through motherhood. I carried that role through my marriage. I carried that role through business ownership. And I performed for everyone on a daily basis. And guess what? I was exhausted because I didn't actually know who Anne was for decades. I didn't actually meet her until I had my 3rd rock bottom in 2020. And I got to this point of so much dissociation and so much depression that I wasn't even aware in my own body to know that I was there. It took years and years of me to be so exhausted where I was finally able to connect with myself and say it out loud. I want you to close your eyes again. Pretend like there's no one next to you. I want to just take a moment to pause, listen to all of the sounds, including that beautiful chainsaw, and just listen to the nature around you. Close your eyes and stay closed. And we're just going to take 3 deep breaths at your own pace. Go. Keep your eyes closed. If silence makes you uncomfortable, let's start there. Why is the stillness and the calm uncomfortable? When our nervous systems feel safe, we can settle. And stillness and quiet is something that our economy, our society, our families, our culture, our work life does not support. Think about this. You're inundated in your workday, and you take this moment, 30 seconds, not even, to close your eyes where you are and take 3 deep breaths for yourself. You can open your eyes. How grounding did that make you feel in your environment? You realize, I am in my body, I am in this park, I am outside, there is construction, and there is some strange woman talking to me, okay? When we think about where we are in our presence, the connectivity, that's the place we have to start from. And what I want to share is disconnection is very common. Suicide is very common. Depression is very common. You're not alone. These are all things that are rooted from a place of shame and fear and telling lies. We don't mean to be liars in our lives, of course, but since we were kids, that's what kept us safe. We had to show up for other people. We had to perform for safety. We had to perform for that conditional formatted love. We had to perform for the parents' approval or the teacher's acceptance or that good grade. So many of us are in this place of performing for the result. And especially as women, we perform for the next level. But the performance might not be true to you or true to your truth. So let's talk about what that looks like. How many of you have ever wanted to disappear from your life? You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to. Did your life ever feel so big and so overwhelming and so not you that you just wanted to quit? You see, for me, when I said I don't need to exist, it wasn't I don't want to exist, it was I don't need to be here, because I was so convicted that I didn't have a purpose in that life structure any longer. And when I shared that with my husband, I was terrified. Immediate thoughts of sharing your truth. Holy shit. Did I just say that out loud? What does he think of me? I am a failure. I'm a terrible mother. How dare I? I have these 3 children and I don't want to do this anymore. I'm an awful person. I'm an awful business person, right? I'm an awful business owner. How could I fail my clients? I love my clients, but I don't want to work with them anymore. I don't want to do this. All of those things create shame, judgment, fear of abandonment. These are the fears that exist underneath every truth. And so what I want to present to you is an invitation today. I want to invite you to tell your truth. Because why not today? Today is the first day you can start living honestly. You can actually show up where you need to, at home or at work. I want you to think about one truth today that you have not told. The truths that we keep secret. We keep them in silence because we want to silently not bother anybody with what we want. Our desires, our pleasures, our wants, our goals, our needs. These are all things that you deserve. And I want to invite you to the table of honesty because it really is simple, but we need an invitation. We need permission. So this is your permission granted today. I want you to think about one truth that you have sat silent about for far too long. And I'm going to pause. One truth that you have not said out loud to anyone. And when you have that truth, I want you to think about why. What are you protecting? By not saying that truth, what does that protect in you? Because we protect things that we're afraid of. And the fear is actually not our identity, but we think it's our identity. When we say that truth out loud, what are we protecting? And what are we giving up? Because when you share it, it actually becomes less scary. So think about one person who needs to hear that truth that you just thought of. Who's the one person that truth is going to impact? When you have that in your head, I want you to think about a sentence. I usually say it like, if I'm being completely honest, I want X. If it didn't matter, and I'm telling the truth, right? We all preface with that so that we're giving ourselves permission if the other person is like, holy shit. We said, well, hey, I warned you. This was coming, because we think it's bigger in our heads than it needs to be, right? So if I'm being completely honest to my boss, I'm not happy in my job. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not happy with our marriage. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not enjoying motherhood. If I'm being completely honest, I don't enjoy our friendship the way it's going anymore. These are truths that we as women are so good at hiding because we're performing all of the things that we think we should be doing. But at what point in our life do we say, pause? I'm not happy here anymore. I'm going to give this space to change. It doesn't mean by you sharing your truth that you're giving up on it and walking out. It means you're inviting that other person who needs to hear the truth to the table to have a conversation. What happens when we say our truth out loud, we identify the thing that we were protecting. For a lot of us, it's abandonment. Does anyone know if they're an anxious attachment style? Raise your hand. Fellow anxious attachers? Yes, I'm a recovering people pleaser as well. For me as a child to stay safe in my house, I had to people please and I had to anxiously attach. And I had to become the greatest empath in the world to understand the emotions of everyone around me who is unregulated and very emotionally irresponsible. And if you felt that as well as an adult, you also hold those emotional reins to say, hey, I'm going to hold the energy of the room so that I feel safe. But by doing that, we're also performing for other people because we're afraid of abandonment. Because when you have an anxious attachment, if you speak up, if you have a feeling, if you want something different, if you believe something different, then you will be abandoned. Maybe not physically, but emotionally, yes. Emotional abandonment is actually worse than physical abandonment, I think, because physically they're still there in front of you, but you can't access them. There's no connectivity. And that could be far lonelier than physical distance. And so what we have to remind ourselves of today is in the workplace, we lead the same place at work as we do at home. The same way you parent, if you have kids, you lead that same way with your team. The same way you submit to your authority, which were your parents growing up, is the same way you're going to submit to your bosses. You have to think about these patterns that come from our mindset. Who are we trying to please? Who are we disappointing? And where do we get to show up as honestly as possible in our lives? Because if we still do the same thing every single day, there's no room for change. And then you get to the end of your life and you go, wow, I didn't exist in any of that. I just lived this entire life. I didn't go on that trip I wanted. I didn't do that with my partner. I was married to someone who I was disconnected from for 30 years. Why did I stay? You see, when you're close to the end of your life, you finally wake up and realize with presence and connectivity, my body is failing. My mind is failing me, but it's too late. I don't want that to be too late for us. I want you to have this amazing, joyful, fulfilling life that's on the other side of truth-telling. Because through truth-telling, you actually live with honest presence. And people can feel that energy. But you know what really sucks about truth-telling? Is that it will disrupt your life. The only way truth-telling works for you to stop performing and live honestly is to let that truth disrupt your life. That means scary things, divorce, I actually don't think divorce is a bad word. I think it's a really awesome celebration of two people speaking their truth and agreeing that that life wasn't for them. It could mean quitting your job. It could mean stepping down as a CEO. It could mean closing that company that you spent 20 years building because you didn't want to be a business owner anymore. It could mean ending that friendship that you've had for 30 years and you were supposed to be lifelong friends because that's what your best friend necklaces said when you were in 8th grade. I don't care what it is, but the pressure of females, especially female leaders, is so great to keep performing so that you stay small. We were not created to disappear from these lives that we're creating. You guys are amazing minds and energy and thought leaders, and you have presence on this earth, and you were born to do amazing things. But we can't do those things until we tell our truth. How big or how small that truth is doesn't matter. You know why? Truth-telling is not an event. We're not here today and we say, okay, Anne's leading us through truth-telling and we did it. I did it, check, I'm done. Truth-telling is like meditation. Truth-telling is a daily practice. We start our day by saying, today, there's one thing that I want to do honestly for yourself. Maybe as a mom, with your partners, as a boss, with your friends, with yourself. With yourself. What is one thing today that you want to do? Say one truth in the morning. It's almost like when you wake up and you do the journaling and the mindfulness and the meditation. If you don't have 3 children like me and you have a quiet morning at home and you can make time and space for that, that would be a great question. It takes a few seconds. What is one truth I want to say to someone today? Even if it's, hey, I didn't really enjoy that meeting yesterday because I didn't get a lot out of it. Can I help you make it more impactful next time? Wow. Let's collaborate. Let's be kind. Let's be respectful, but let's not waste people's time at work. Let's lead at home. Hey, I'd really love for today to go differently. Instead of me picking up from camp, could you? It would really help me out and it would help me shift my day. Crawling out of that 2020 statement, I hadn't asked for equity in my marriage. That was on me. I was so mad at my husband thinking that everything was on me. Well, I was the martyr. I did it to myself because I successfully lied for years through motherhood thinking I had to do this. Well, I'm the entrepreneur. He has the steady job. So this is obviously my job. So I'm going to kill myself going here, going there, picking up, making lunches, doing all of the things. But whose job was that? Our job. But I didn't give him a seat at the table until I finally said the truth after that statement and said, I'm fucking miserable. How about that? Everybody thinks I'm happy. I have a smile on my face. I go to work. I was voted like best laugh or smile in high school. She knows, she was there. I was this tall, happy blonde. I was dying inside. I was suffering. I was miserable, but I performed like nobody's business. And I was done. But it took me until the age of 36 to really understand that. And that's okay. Because we all arrive at our truth journeys at different points in our life. And that's the beauty of it. We're all on this different path. But you're all here together because you are taking time for yourselves. Because you know the importance of connectivity, of movement, of silence, of pause, of asking yourself, I want more. What is it? Those truths are buried on purpose because the world wants to keep you small so that it can keep performing around you as well. But if you notice when you stop performing, you start attracting the people that aren't performing either. And so the beauty of bravery and of loss and of separation through truth-telling, disruption creates beauty and it creates new. And I will say the last 6 years of my life have been the most beautiful transformational years I've ever experienced. And I fully arrived feeling like I was born at 40. And the last 2 years of my life have been filled with the greatest joy of connectivity, of truly identifying who Anne is for the first time in my entire life. And I want that for you. And I did it by sharing one truth. And then from there, that was the scariest truth of I don't want to be here anymore. I literally want to go drive off a cliff because I'm flirting with that idea. How does that sound? And then having a safe person to meet me on the other side of that truth and get curious about it. You know what's really beautiful when you say your truth? you start to uncover what you were afraid of, but you realize what you were afraid of is not your identity. It's not actually who you are. What you were afraid of were conditions of how you were raised and loved as a child. And you can separate the two from yourself, and then you realize there is no fear in truth-telling, because what often happens on the other side of truth-telling is curiosity, is relief, is a sigh of letdown, because your nervous system feels seen and heard because you allowed it to. No one can tell your truth for you. You have to. And when you share that truth with people, they decide if they're safe for you or not. And if they're not a safe person for your truth, you then get to decide if they stay in your life. That is the beauty of truth-telling. It weeds people in and out who are going to support you as a whole human, at work and at home in your natural form, for all your desires, all your pleasures, and everything that you want for yourself in this life. And as you find your tribe, you will decide who is going to support your truth and who might not be for you anymore. And that's the heartbreak I talk about. On the other side of truth-telling, there will be some disruption. But that disruption is doing good. That disruption is allowing you to finally feel presence every single day. And how amazing would it be when you go to work and you come home and you can be the same person without filtering, without performing, without sugarcoating, without walking on eggshells, because we're done with that. And you can just exist fully as you are in this body that God gave you. Completely embodied in your mind, body, and soul, connected. And that is where we use movement to connect. Movement allows our bodies to release emotion. So when you're having a hard day, throw on music and dance. In 2020, what saved my life, because I grew up dancing and I had stopped dancing for 10 to 15 years, okay? I was in complete darkness when I was not moving. And then I pulled out of it with throwing my headphones on and going to the basement and just looking like an idiot and moving again. And the amount of rage and sadness and sorrow and sobbing that left my body when I was dancing in my headphones. I called it basement dancing. And it lifted me out, along with therapy, along with books, along with really honest conversations with some friends who are still with me today, and along with a very long truth-telling journey with my husband. Now, thankfully, he is a safe person, and he helped see all of my skeletons in my closet as I brought them out over these last 6 years. He was my first form of unconditional love I've ever felt in my entire life. I didn't know that people would stay if you looked like the asshole. You see, for me, I always performed to the most perfect level to not be the person who had a differing opinion. I always filtered myself. I was raised to not truly be Anne in all of my form. And so when I was allowed to do that with my husband, that's the kind of relationship, not saying it has to be your partner, but there are some people in your life, friends, coworkers, bosses, family members, children, who will be your safe space. Practice there first, because what you will reveal when you tell your truth with these safe people is connection, curiosity, safety, unconditional acceptance. And once you practice feeling that with one person, you just rinse and repeat. And you practice it over and over and over, and you will see your friendships change. You will see your workplace change and evolve. You will see your identity change, your title, your role. You will see the amount of hours you choose to spend at home versus in the office versus on vacation versus with yourself. You will start to see shifts that are all based on these truths of what you want, where you want them, and how you want them to exist. So my invitation for you today is to share your truth and identify what is the fear underneath that truth. What are you protecting? Is that worth protecting more so than the joy that exists for you on the other side of showing up honestly with presence and connectivity? Thank you.